Hi folks, I'm Craig Taylor, and as always a huge thank you for joining me here on my YouTube channel, the Bushcraft Padawan. In my last video, which I'll link to up here, I went out and did an overnighter with my daughter, and one of the skills that I wanted to practice whilst I was out there was the creation of Feathersticks. Now if you've watched that video, you'll already know what the output of that was. If you didn't, in a nutshell, whilst I created Feathersticks, yes, they were marginal. I wasn't overly happy with them. I honestly feel that if conditions had been a bit tougher, if it had been a bit damper, if it had been a bit windier, then all of that would have conspired to actually push out the effectiveness or the efficacy of my Feathersticks. I produced them, they worked just. And I wasn't happy with that. I wanted to move that along. I wanted to improve the efficacy and the robustness of my Featherstick creation. So what did I do about it? Well, I went back home, and last weekend in my back garden I actually took a very slow, methodical, thought through process of creating some more Feathersticks. The purpose of this video is not to be a how to create great Feathersticks type of video. That's not the purpose of it at all. What I will do at the end of this, I will link to a playlist where I've curated together lots of YouTube videos that I found useful, and I'll also include in the link below a link to an article by Paul Kirtley that, if I'm honest, that was the factor that improved my Featherstick production more than anything. So please do take a look at that article as well. So here is an example of a Featherstick that I produced months and months and months ago. And I actually produced this because we have a log burner in our house, and as soon as I got my knife, I grabbed a piece of wood, I processed it down, or so I thought, and I tried to create a Featherstick. And that is one of my very first efforts many months ago, and I didn't keep it for the purposes of looking back on this video. It's quite fortuitous that we haven't had a fire since I practiced for the very first time, so it's a nice comparison of a before example of creating some Feathersticks. So let's have a walk through and talk through about what I did then to move myself along the process. Well, first of all, I use my back garden. This is, I think, is a good example of being able to practice skills, important skills that don't mean you have to be out in the wild, in the woods, in the bush, up a mountain somewhere. They're skills that you can practice at home that you can then hopefully replicate when you get out in those conditions. So I practiced this in my back garden. Other things that I did differently this time around: I took my time and I hunted round for some good, straight, relatively knot-free pieces of wood. And as it happened, quite a few months ago, my son and I, in line with the Dave Canterbury programme that he's undertaken, we created a ladder using some rope and some pieces of wood. And I still had those pieces of wood in my garage, so I processed them down. So I cut the lengths of timber, of wood, much longer than I normally do. In the past, I've tried to keep my Feathersticks quite short because I had the affordance of time, because I had these wonderful straight pieces of wood, relatively knot free. I could create batons of wood that were much longer than I normally do. I found that to be very useful. I also, when I processed them down, I processed them down further than I normally do. I normally process down into quarters, maybe eighths. On this occasion, I processed them down even further, and I processed them down using my axe, therefore saving the edge of my blade for the more fine, intricate process of taking off the fine slivers of wood. Once I'd found those nice straight pieces of wood, knot free, processed them down much thinner than normal, I started actually creating the Feathersticks themselves. A little bit of reading that I've been doing, both on Paul's blog and also some YouTube videos. I varied the angle of my blade. On some occasions the blade would be parallel to the ground as I pushed it through the wood. On other occasions the handle would be up and the tip would be down, giving a slightly different angle of curl. And on other occasions the tip would be up and the handle would be down, giving a different variation on the curl, all to allow you to build up a greater build-up of curls around the bottom of that feather stick. I also practiced something that Paul talks about a lot on the elementary course that I went on, and also in his article, which was to start and finish in the same place. You can see here that whilst I've been starting in the same place, you can see by the spread of those curls I've not really been finishing in the same place, and that's something that I'm still working on. But in terms of starting in the same place, found it much easier, and found that I had a better, a greater curl at the end of my technique, because the wood was longer. I was starting therefore higher up. I was starting in the same place higher up each time. That allowed me to get a much longer curl, which I found very useful indeed. The other thing that I worked on was trying to get the neck, the point just before the massive curls, as thin as possible, because as Paul again mentions, and as is mentioned in many of the YouTube videos, the curls will ignite, hopefully, but then you want those curls to actually ignite the upper part of the wood. And if that neck is nice and thin, it will be much easier for it to catch a light and for that flame to then spread up the wood itself, allowing the whole feather stick, not just the feathers, to actually become part of your kindling, or your tinder, and then indeed your kindling as it works its way, as the flame works its way into the thicker piece of wood. So that's what that's what I did. That's my process, if you like, from start to finish. Do I have any tips for you? Well, if you follow these headlines that I've given in this video here, if perhaps more importantly you look at the how-to videos that I'm going to link to at the end of this video, and perhaps critically if you read the article from Paul and follow that, I think you will hopefully have the same improvement in your feather stick technique as well, if that's something that you're looking to improve. Again, I would stress this is not meant to be a how-to video. There are other videos out there that do it much better than I can, because I'm still learning the technique myself. But those few small tweaks have allowed me to significantly, as you can see between my old feather stick here and the new Feathersticks that I've produced, you can see a real difference between the two. I'm the same person. I'm using the same tool to craft the feather stick, the same knife, but I'm doing things differently. Straighter pieces of wood, more knot-free pieces of wood, longer pieces of wood, start and finish in the same point, get that neck as thin as possible, angle, or vary the angle of the blade as you push through the wood, and hopefully you'll be able to improve your feather sticks as well. As always, a big thank you from me to you to watching. My subscriptions have, I won't say rocketed, because they're still very small in comparison to YouTube type standards, but from my perspective, subscribers have kind of gone through the roof in the past month to 6 weeks. I'm really appreciative if you're one of the people that have subscribed. Thank you so much. If you've not yet subscribed and you've taken a look around my channel and you think, yeah, I like what Craig's doing, I'd like to keep up to date with that, please do click that subscribe button. It's appearing in this corner of the screen now, and over on this corner of the screen you should see a couple of videos and playlists to go and have a look at. One will be about Feathersticks, and another one is about how you don't need to go somewhere to practice your bushcraft skills. And hopefully in this video you've seen the fact that I only stepped a few meters outside of my house and was able to use the opportunity to refine a bushcraft skill. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next video, and take care. Cheers.